Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soul View. This is Cindy Kabika, and of course, we have with us Lorelei and Shivani. And we take what's in the news and we look at it from a soul's perspective. And last week, we started our conversation about the Four Agreements. And here's the book again, so everybody can see that. This is the Four Agreements, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz, and I think a lot of us know about it, but it's a really wonderful time for us to revisit that right now because we're seeing a lot of, especially the Four Agreements, the first agreement, which we covered last week, there's not a lot of impeccability in what we are seeing today especially from the U.S. administration, I think from other administrations as well. And so people were really asking us so many questions. We decided on a soul level, we can be impeccable with our words. And that's the first agreement. And the second agreement, which to me is one of the hardest ones. I don't know what you guys think, but don't take it personally. Oh my gosh. The first time somebody cuts you off in traffic, that goes out the window. You know, you get cut off, or somebody gets a raise over you, or you unjustly get fired, or it feels like it's, not justice. And so we start taking it personally and we make it about ourselves. So that's what our conversation is going to be about today, how we can move past, not taking things so personally. Before we get into that conversation though, Lorelei, you want to go ahead and give everybody the cosmic weather?
Speaking of
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, speaking of taking things personally, we always have an opportunity to do that even more when the moon is full, because when the moon's full, again, the glass is full of water, this is the Aquarius full moon, and it's a lunar eclipse. Eclipses bring about changes. There's an opportunity to shift some old conditioning from the past. The changes that people can make at eclipses are astounding and amazing. And this is an opportunity to really get a greater awareness about some piece of emotional conditioning that doesn't serve you anymore, like something we've done, whatever that familiar is that doesn't serve. But again, in terms of revisiting the Four Agreements, how perfect, as we are right on the eve of Mercury, the planet of communication, that little planet with the giant reputation, will appear to go backwards until August 19th in Leo. Well, the beauty again of Mercury in retrograde is, and I've even felt it in my own life, there's some things that some calls I haven't made. I need to call this and sort that out, and I need to sort that out. You know how things appear to fall through the cracks? Well, a Mercury retrograde is a perfect time to go get that stuff. Those things where you have some nagging detail in your head and you go, I need to handle that. Well, Mercury's in Leo, so there's a beautiful opportunity to really re-examine how much we speak from our heart or not. And so between Mercury retrograde in Leo and then Mars, the planet of what drives us, retrograde in Aquarius, it's really the opportunity to take this new look at, again, speaking from the heart and how that can be in service to our friends, to the collective, to the groups that we're part of, Aquarius. And really, I really think that people can take this piece out of their own closet. Anywhere where you've told yourself, I can't be who I am. I can't really let this piece of me out of the closet, this authentic part of me. I can't, my mother wouldn't like it, or my father, or my maid, or my whatever. So there's really, again, with all the energies that are up, it's like all the emotions are up, and that's what happens at a full moon. It's like the emotions are right on the front burner. So it really takes, to me, a greater sense of emotional responsibility to decide that you're going to respond over these next few days as opposed to reacting, which it's so easy to do. And of course, that's, to me, that whole taking things personally is totally that
Definitely
defensive, which he talks about, we'll be talking about. But yeah, this to me is the most, I mean, this agreement is definitely one that has been an amazing challenge for me.
I think it's been an amazing challenge for all of us. Go ahead,
Can I
Shivani.
for a moment, because we have Donna saying that she can't hear us.
Oh.
Can you just double check that? Whether it's Donna or whether, can anybody hear us?
Yeah, please let us know if you can hear us.
Donna said, I have video but no audio. I have turned audio on and off several times to no avail.
Okay. Let's see.
So maybe
loud and clear. Maureen says loud and clear.
Okay, so maybe it's...
That might be her.
Yeah, it might be.
Type in that they can hear us, please, in the chat, just to double check.
Sound is perfect on Facebook.
Oh, okay, sound is good. That's Anne. Okay, sorry. So that must be Donna. Okay.
Okay, so it must be something that is hers. Hey, Mercury's going into retrograde tomorrow, so.
Well, as I said, flexibility
breaths
is the hallmark of mental health. I mean, because again, if we try to hold on to something that should be a certain way and it's not, like I can't get this to work or that won't work, because think about it, communication and action are both for a period of time, a couple of weeks, going to be in retrograde, which again, if surrendered into, can be so rich. And we'll talk more about this over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be covering all four of the agreements. But again, as we said, the first one is the second one is don't take anything personally. And we got in so many questions this week. I couldn't believe it. And Lorelei, a lot of them were fear about what's going on when they see things that are going on, particularly in the news. And sorry for anybody that doesn't like the politics thing, but most of them were around that, which surprised me. I didn't even know anything was well, I knew something was going on because it's going on every day, but I didn't know any specifics until I got a bunch of emails, and there's a lot of fear. So if people are feeling that more than usual, what would that be about?
Well, certainly, I mean, at a full moon, emotions are heightened. Here's the planet of what drives us in retrograde. So old anger, it's easy for old anger that's been festering to come up, which is also passion. And of course, it's not to negate what's going on in our government, but it's very easy to project one's own personal fear onto what's going on out there. So I mean, and this is in a way my pat answer, but it's not a pat answer, but exactly this, where I, as an individual, really don't have any control over what this one is doing or that one is doing in our government. So what I do have control over is my own process, is my own cleaning. So I would suggest to anyone who's afraid about what's going on out there, if you can bring it back home from the standpoint of, okay, because to me, part of the overwhelm is, what do we do, each individual, to affect change over there? Well, the way we affect change is we affect change here. My process is Ho'oponopono. I come right to it immediately. It's like, oh, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm going to go into cleaning. So I don't mean that to be as a what do you say, just to put a lid on it at all. But again, if it's coming up in our reality, we are all responsible for it, not just what's going on over there in the White House or in Russia or wherever.
Yeah. And for me, I'm an activist, so I get out and act, but acting from the heart is really important. And I want to go ahead and read some of the comments that we have received. Let me see. First, Susan's. Was it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just feel I need to just contribute what's being said. And I might have a little different take on it because I was just processing everything. So there are different fears, right? So obviously, if a fear is coming from the past, or fear is just your negative belief, absolutely, ideally we clean that, we come back into love. And I also agree that we need to create any action through love. However, I think, because I look back at history and being born in Germany, I'm very aware of what can happen, right? And so I think if you get, for example, guidance that you need to move or you need to do something and that resonates, then that wouldn't be fear-based. Yeah, I think we can have our blinkers on because we simply don't believe that somebody can be so malicious and so dark. You know what I mean? Like we spiritual people don't believe that anybody can literally take us into the abyss. And I'm not saying this is happening, but I also think we need to differentiate what is fear and what is guidance and what is action, yeah, that we need to take.
And that's it. I beautifully said, because sometimes we get guided to do things, and you know, it happens to me all the time, and that's when I take action. And there are other things when that happen and I don't feel like it's my part to go out there and do something about it.
Well, and see, that is one of the biggest gifts of the Ho'oponopono, because it's by cleaning, we allow the divine inspiration to come forth. So let's say someone's in fear and they don't know what to do. Well, if we clean enough, my understanding is, and I can see it, I'm seeing it, if we clean enough, then we are inspired. Maybe it is moving. Maybe it is writing a petition. Maybe it is taking, you know, going out and speaking out, whatever. But, you know, I'm getting a lot more comfortable that if my actions are not divinely inspired, I'm not taking them.
Yeah.
I mean.
And I agree with that 100%.
Absolutely.
And that feels really good. That feels really like right. Like, okay, I know I want to do something, but I don't want to do something precipitously. I want to really feel guided by the divine. So if I know the divine inspiration is coming because I'm cleaning everything that's in the way, then, so that's been my go-to. I mean, for whatever's happening.
Yeah. All right, let me read out these comments. We have Susan. I want to thank you personally for having this conversation, which is very relevant to our soul life here. Thank you for going beyond that old thinking that spirituality and politics do not go together, in brackets, fear-based. That is part of the soul's emergence and statement into our great world. With love, Susan.
I love that. And Susan Shire, for those who are wondering there, she's a spiritual leader. And it was nice to hear from her. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
I'm trying to, oh yeah, that was, hang on. Hang on, no, I'm trying to, okay, we have no name. While it may be too much to ask, maybe we should start putting more energy and action into holding all of our political leaders to be impeccable in their word. Either quit lying or quit the job. Facebook is alive and well.
Yeah. And that's where I got the majority of these messages from people. You know.
Okay, Mike, that's a funny one. Okay, I will not take this personally. I'm glad. Even though it keeps happening. Could not register on Facebook. Did on Zoom. Hopefully I will see you soon.
Okay, I'm not sure why, because you should be able to just go into the page, because we have it on our Energized Living Today page. So I didn't even know that you had to register.
Yeah, no, I didn't think you did.
Yeah, I didn't think so, because I don't put the Zoom out there because we have limited space. So I don't put the Zoom, I don't advertise that. I advertise Facebook because that's easier for people. So one of the comments that we got, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but, you know, people say if you don't pay attention to what's happened in the past, you're destined to repeat it. But we also don't want to live in the past, or you're destined to stay there. So you really have to be careful. It's a fine line of saying, yes, look what happened before, and paying attention to what's going on in the future. And what was the young lady's name that wrote in? It's not Nyla. It's now
Hang on, I'll
Nalia.
Nalia.
I mean, that,
Okay, Nalia. Yeah, and she's speaking from a point where she lost people in the Holocaust. So for her, she lost family members and she was very concerned. So that's where hers comes from. It is a real fear because she's lost somebody. Take the time, and I want to speak to anyone that's had a great loss in their life from a tragedy, and take the time to clear that out. Ho'oponopono with tapping is a great way to do that. And then call upon spirit, call upon your guides as to how you move forward so that you're not approaching all of this from a state of fear.
well, and you know what occurs to me with Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion and understanding in Scorpio, now moving forward again for the last couple of weeks. But again, Scorpio is the sign of go to the bottom. So, I mean, if people are afraid, then know that somehow there's wisdom in that fear. There's wisdom, there's understanding. It's like by allowing it, it's going to take all of us to a place of greater connection. That's what's happening. But it makes sense that if more fear is up now than usual, whether it's due to this going on in a government or this going on over here, we're all having a cosmic opportunity to examine or re-examine what scares us, and to really, we can all be the phoenix now rising from the ashes.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully said. Well, let me see. Do we have any other comments?
no. It's
Okay.
just about the sound. Everybody's happy with the sound.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Do we have anything on Facebook?
All righty, I'm just getting ready to go over to Facebook. And by the way, everybody, I've still got this detox head cold going on. Oh, that's comments. Two other questions before I go over there that I want to cover. One, well, not one. Actually, I've gotten many people asking how I'm doing after my surgery. And I just want to say I'm doing amazingly, even though I'm detoxing and I've got that detox flu thing going on. Some things that I wrote down because I didn't want to forget them. I no longer have floaters in my eyes. I've had this for years. I didn't know that it was subject to breast implant illness, and that is clearing. I only have one little spot, and so I can actually read better. It's amazing. I did not know that would happen. I can smell things better. My thinking is clear, and of course, as I said before, no pain. But the feeling, I've had numb places on my body for a long time where I had no feeling, especially on this left side here, and I mean the right side, and I thought it was due to the car wreck because the seatbelt locked and I had a lot of damage, which is why I had the implants there. And I did not know that it was due to the implants and not to the injuries to my neck, to the broken neck. So I find that really fascinating. I'm learning a lot as I'm going through this. It's crummy to have to go through it, but for me, it is an exciting journey because I feel and see all the changes every day, and I'll go, isn't that cool? Isn't that fascinating? And so now I can share that with other people and say, wow, this is a fascinating journey. So I wanted to say that. And the other one was about my puppy. My puppy wasn't big enough for me to bring home. She has to be 2 pounds, and then she can start eating solid foods. And she was 1.9, and so they just put her on solid foods. And so we're going to wait a couple of weeks before she comes home. But I'm not the only one getting a new puppy. You want to tell everyone about your puppy?
Yes, so I'm getting the opposite size puppy.
Mine will be 5 pounds, and yours will be
90 pounds. I'm getting a Rhodesian Ridgeback puppy, and it's been actually incredible. We realized without obviously intentionally doing this, all 3 of us are getting new kitten or puppies at the same time. So Lorelai got one
just a week ago.
Yeah, and guess what? Cindy and I will get the puppy at the same day.
Oh, is it the same day? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. And
Yeah,
not in, not,
next week, because of the delay, I'm going on the 3rd, which will be the 4th for you. So
and I'm getting
we're
puppy
doing
on the
exactly the
Oh
same
my
thing.
Lord.
And all 3 of our animals were born in May.
Yeah. That's
So,
amazing.
you know, it's not like we aligned with this and said, okay, let's all do this at one time. You know, we just
Isn't that like women that menstruate together?
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, it just popped into my
I
head.
love that.
That's true. Yeah, well, I'll get.
We're doing the animals together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. And her little kitty Moxie is just as cute as could be. If Moxie happens to make it in there, you know, show them to everybody.
I will.
And then you know, mine's a little Morky, 5 to 6 pounds, and then her Ridgeback is going to be 90 pounds. Oh my gosh.
Akash, the Ridgeback. Yes.
Yeah.
And we are going to do an animal show at some point.
Yes, on the 15th, August 15th, we are going to be doing a show on animals, and we're going to talk about, in fact, we've invited an animal healer on and psychic. So she really listens to the animals. So that's kind of fun. And we're pretty excited about that. So we'll be announcing that in the future. But as I said, for the next 2 weeks, we'll be talking about the agreements. And today we are talking about don't take it personally. And Lorelei, I want to start with you because your response was big, you know. So you want to go ahead and explain?
Yeah, and I actually can make an astrological connection too, to some degree, because the sign of the zodiac that would most, I mean, even though we all can do this, but that would most take it personally and defend and react is Cancer. And that happens to be my rising sign. So the whole journey of taking things personally has been fascinating for me, because again, there is a certain, as he calls it, you know, a sense of personal importance. And it's very selfish. It's very selfish. And I'm talking to myself, believe me, I'm not necessarily pointing fingers at you guys out there, but you know, whether it's somebody doesn't call me back, or, you know, it can be the littlest thing of, oh, I must have, oh my God, I wonder. And invariably, whatever that was, has had absolutely nothing to do with me. But I guess for me, I'm always amazed that it's so reactive for me. It's so quick, and I can be so quick to just make it about me. Like, this must have to do with me that this person is acting a certain way. Now, I've come to learn through things that I've studied that how we react is all about, you know, so whatever anybody's doing has nothing to do with me. It's all about them. But because of that need to be right and need to defend, so this was huge for me to read this and study it and really get, you know, and really making that commitment. So it still happens, but I'm much more conscious of it now, and quicker to go, oh my God, look at that. You took that personally. So, of course, and then I go into the prayer. But that's.
Yeah, I would love to add that the way I see it is, as soon as I'm reacting, as soon as I have any emotional reaction, it's me that needs to look, well, not needs, that can choose to look at what's going on, right? I always liken it to somebody throwing you a ball. Now, you can choose to catch it, or you can choose to duck, and the ball goes elsewhere.
That's good.
So when you're clear, you know, you duck. Nothing to do with it. And, you know, the person that's throwing it soon becomes bored because they're playing by themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think for a lot of people that... I love that. I love that. And I think for a lot of people, when we take it personally, it's because, you know, we live in our own minds. We live in our own bodies. So we know what we're thinking, and everything's about me. I mean, we start that as children. You know, it's me. That really never stops until we become conscious and make a conscious decision to not make it about ourselves all the time. And so I think that's part of the, you know, taking things so personally. And I used to quite a bit, but now when somebody says something, and I'm going to talk about the comments that we get either on Energized Living Today or on the show here, if we get negative comments, at one point, I would have taken all of them very personally and it would just shut me down. I'm sensitive. I'm a sensitive person. And now I don't. I look for trends. If a lot of people say the same thing, then that's when I bring up comments and I make my own changes. But if it's a one-off, it's not about me. It's about whatever that person is going through. And even when we write people, like comments that people come back at us with, especially in social media, they're reading it from their mindset, not yours. So whatever you write, they can take it personally and come back at you. And the key there is to not make that a ping pong match.
Well, and I love the whole thing about taking it personally, whether it's a positive comment, oh, Lorelei, you're so fabulous, or you're this, or whatever, to not take that personally, because we love that, right? To not take that personally as much as not taking personally, oh, well, I didn't like the way she did that or the way you do that. So that's really a key too. Like he says in the book, whether they tell him he's great or he's not, and so that's certainly something we can all practice. These are things to practice. These aren't things that we necessarily just come by naturally to know how to do. But like anything else that we study, if we practice it, we can become much more adept for sure.
And we can stand in appreciation though.
Right.
That doesn't mean not to be grateful or appreciative when you get those comments, not at all. But when we start taking it personally, that's when the ego starts to build. And when the ego takes over,
yeah,
you can end up with a...
And I love the fact that he uses the word poison. We can take the poison or not, much like the ball. We can duck and let the ball go over us, or we can stay there and be hit by the ball or swallow the poison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Ferris just piped in. He said, it's hard not to take things personally with me being the center of the universe. Of course.
Yeah, he's going to share his universal laws. Ferris has his own universal laws. And the first one, it's all about me. And we all feel that way. We make it about ourselves. And it is. It is. And we can become conscious and remember, when that reaction starts, there's a split second for us to change between stimulus and response.
Yeah.
There's choice.
That's where the magic is.
Yes, that's where the magic is and where the choice is. And so you get to make a choice at that moment and choose differently. Yeah. I'm not saying it's easy, and it can be done.
Yeah.
There's a comment online here on Facebook from Valerie, and she's learned and realized all darkness is merely a shadow of light that shines ever so brightly on the other side. Having said that, how can I be a bright light for those in our lives who want to continue to suppress us? That's a good question.
It was interesting what she said. How can I be a bright light considering those that are trying to suppress her, right? In other words, well, there's a perfect, actually, that's really speaks to this whole lunar eclipse in Aquarius, because it is about being who we are. Mm-hmm. So, depending on how, Valerie, you're wired, it may be more difficult for you, but it's really, here's an opportunity coming up with this energy of the lunar eclipse, et cetera, without belaboring the beautiful language of astrology, to really, exactly the fact that you were stimulated to ask that question is perfect of the energy, and I know it's easy when people say, well, just be yourself. And we go, well, what does that mean? But if you allow the universe to guide you and allow the divine inspiration to come forth, you'll find that the outer will shift, that all of a sudden, whoever that is out there that's trying to suppress you is really reflecting the part of you that's suppressing yourself. And
And for her, she says it's her sister, and it's a huge part of her soul agreement. But she's lost on how to work on this when she constantly refuses to speak to her. And, you know,
You mean the sister refuses
the
to speak?
sister is not, she will not speak to Valerie.
So what I would suggest, Valerie, is hold her in the highest light. Really visualize, feel that your sister is happy and has created whatever she wants to create, because she will get that energy. You can't obviously force somebody. We have divine will, right? But instead of worrying about it, being upset about it, being sad about it, if you can, I think the biggest service you can do with your sister is imagine she is whole, because she is underneath all the crap, and send her love and light.
You can say to someone, you know, and I've done this in my own life when I realize I can't have peace and a relationship with a certain individual. You know, I've had to do that many times, and I can say, I love you, goodbye, and still love that person. As I say, you know, we're not going to be able to have a relationship. You can still send them love. You can still pray for them. You can still ask for the divine guidance, and just realize that not all relationships have to be nourished on an earth level. They can be nourished on a spiritual level.
Yeah, and I have a couple things I'd like to say. One is your sister, of course, is not in your life by accident. So whatever role she plays, whatever comes up for you, Valerie, when she doesn't respond, boy, I know this one. What's in my own history around a parent not responding, and where you go with that. So there's two things. You get to be with you. You get to nurture and nourish the part of you that feels whatever it is you feel when she doesn't respond. That's number one. Knowing she's playing the role, the part that on some level, unconsciously, that your soul has scripted for her. So she's showing up exactly, you know, because your need to have her respond is what is important for you to re-examine. And that's the beauty of retrogrades. It's like we get to take what we kind of already know, but we get to scrutinize it. We get to look at it. And so again, here's an opportunity from what you're bringing up to use that. And then, of course, I would say, depending on what your wiring is and your sister's wiring astrologically too. But I thank you for sharing that, because since it's never about what's out there, it's what you do with it. It's what you do with that, whatever that is for you, that feeling when she doesn't respond, as opposed to what else can I do? You know, what dummy dance can I do to have that person respond to me?
It is about letting it go. Sometimes you have to let it go and let it be what it is supposed to be. And that does not mean that you won't come back together in the future. And you have to be willing to just let it go completely if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
By focusing, this is what I found when I focus on someone else. Love you two to respond to this. If I'm always focusing on someone negative in my life that I have a difficult relationship with, then I'm not giving the attention to the people that are right there, present in my life. I'm robbing them of love that I could be giving them by focusing on someone else. And an example of that comes from this young woman that I know who lost a child. She has 4 children. All her focus is on that one child that's no longer here. And the other children are, you know, starting to act out at this point because they're not getting nurturing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you don't leave out everybody else for the death of one relationship.
And it's interesting that you say that, because it's loss, right? And it's focus, whether we're focusing on the loss or we're focusing on the living or what's living. I don't know how to say the opposite of that. But my point is, we have 3, let's see, what is this, July, August, September, October, November, 4 more months of Jupiter in Scorpio. So there is wisdom in that. What you just said, she's focusing on the loss, which would make sense with this energy that we could go there. but out of the focusing on the loss can come the transformation.
Yeah, and it's been a couple of years. So it's not, it knew absolutely if it's something that just happened, that's going to happen. But after 2 years, we have to say there's, I don't understand why this happened. It's okay to say that. And I miss that child, but don't forget there are other people out there that need you right now that you can give to. And the same thing is with anybody that we choose they don't want to be a part of our life, or we don't want them part of our lives. Shivani?
Yeah, look, for me, you have your birth family, and yes, you created that, and then you can create your soul family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the relationship is toxic over a long time, then I think I talk about me, it's my responsibility as part of being loving towards me to actually cut that relationship. And I think, Valerie, you can open up to a new soul sister.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look, we found each other.
Yeah, exactly.
The three of us across the world, we found each other.
I mean, it's beautiful if your biological family is your soul family. That's wonderful. And that's oftentimes not the case necessarily, or certain people are and certain people aren't. But if we can also take the judgment off that, like I need to be getting this from my sister, my brother, my mother, my father, whatever the need is, it has to come from my family. Well, it's actually a good conversation that we're having, because here we're coming up on a full moon. And a full moon is just an opportunity to see things under a brighter light, even though the moon's going to be eclipsed. The eclipse piece is where the change happens. It's like sitting in a closet. I've said this before, and you're sitting in a closet. There's a light on out there in the living room. You're sitting in the closet, and the door closes bit by bit by bit, and the light goes out little by little by little. The door closes. You're in the dark for a moment, and then the door opens again. And you're new. You're like born. There's a rebirth that goes on. So this again is a very powerful. So the intention for all of us, and certainly for you, Valerie, could be that whatever that suppression, it's the word that you use, suppress, feeling suppressed by your family or sister or whatever that suppression is, that it be released, that you can let it go. You've now seen it, you're aware of it, and you can surrender it. That would be my wish for you.
We have a comment.
Okay.
We have a comment from Tracy that feels very true for me. We can have relationships with some people on a spiritual level, not always on this level. Let it go and send them love. Yeah. And the relationship will actually never stop, right? On a spiritual level, you will always have the relationship.
Right. Because we're connected to everybody. Exactly.
I've shared this with everyone before, on Energized Living Today, but I want to reiterate this. I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. My mother and I were estranged for many, many years. I think we all have. Yeah, a lot of people do. And, I got pregnant at 16 and divorced at 17. It wasn't the pregnancy that caused it, not whatsoever. It was the divorce. Not only was I Catholic, and the church said I could never marry again, but also my mother had her own thing going on. For years, I took it personally. And then finally one day I said, why? Why did you turn your back on me at 17? I needed you. And she said, Cindy, I had 6 kids of my own, and I was afraid I was going to have to raise yours too. And I wanted to find out who Elaine was. I never got that opportunity, and it was my turn, and I didn't know how to say it.
Wow.
See, and that's taken it personally. For all those years, it was about me. Of course you would take that personally. And it was really something my mom was going through. And that's when the light just went,
That's a great example.
Yeah. So that's what happens in our life. There's something else going on inside someone. And if we want to be detectives, then spiritual detectives, then we can start asking questions. And that's what I did with Mom. I actually interviewed her like I would interview somebody on the show. Started asking all these questions, and I found out what was behind this behavior, and it healed like that. It was just gone. It was amazing. We were never close again, you know, that ship sailed. However, we were able to talk about spirituality together, and that ended up, you know, in her final year or a couple of years of her life, we had that opportunity to at least have that much of a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember the very moment I realized, oh my God, my mum really has such low self-esteem, and she has that because she was brought home. Her own mum was in bed with arthritis, like she was bedridden, and she actually had to care for her mum. And she was brought up by her nannies. Like my mum was very rich, or her dad was very rich, and so she never got the nurturing and the closeness. And realized that whatever happened, it actually stemmed from her low self-esteem. I could be so much more loving.
Yes.
Yeah. And understand.
And part of that journey is understanding you don't want to be like that, or you don't, you know, you get to consciously make choices then. Wow, this person did this. It was very personal. It was about them, even though I made it about myself. And how have I done that? You know, looking at our own shadows and saying, when have I done that in my own life?
Totally.
Yeah, because we do it. And when we just have to become conscious, we all do it. It's
I'm
nothing
sure there's people out there that, you know, work on forgiving you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and the good news is it can be baby steps, because I learned that I was taking it personally. And so now when something comes up and I find myself reacting or stopping the reacting or getting defensive, I go, oh my God, look how you're taking this personally. So there's that breath between something happens and the reaction. It's like, that's the breath of conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, another thing, if we had been taught this right early on, but, you know, to learn it as an adult, but at least we're learning it. That's the key.
I want everybody to write that down. I know it, but I'm going to actually post it in here. The breath of conscious choice.
Oh,
I love that. I want everyone, please, to write that down right now. Just take a moment and do that. The breath of conscious choice. Because even though we know this, sometimes we need a reminder, and just posting that somewhere where you can see it helps so much.
And especially during a full moon. And it's not because the moon is doing it to anyone. We are the moon, you know, we're full. We're full of emotion. We pour more water in the glass. So that reactive and taking things personally could, you know, escalate a bit in the next few days. In other words, just where you go, you know, like I want to, and then you just take a breath and you go, okay, whatever it is, you count to 10, you go for a walk, you go, whatever. It's just being conscious of what's happening and making a different choice. And the beauty is we can do this. We can all do this.
You know, right now, even with the moon, and I usually feel that energy very keenly, but I'm just so darn happy that nothing's even bothering me. I mean, it's really, it's quite amazing. And for the last few years, I have been more reactive, and now I understand that it's the damage that was being done to my nervous system that caused a lot of that reaction. And right now, I've got the screw it, whatever. You know, I don't even care. It's so funny because I not that I'm passive about things, but things just they roll off me. And even this moon, when I usually feel it so keenly with all these things going on, it's not happening right now. And I'm like, cool, I love this. I hope it stays just like this.
I think sometimes age can play a role. Like I noticed, especially if you're conscious, I noticed that the older I get, and I think it's the life experience that we all have, it's easier. You know, you've experienced the similar stuff in your life and you go, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, not worth my energy and time.
Totally.
I think so.
Yeah. And I have some of that. This is different because it was there was such an abrupt change after I had surgery that I know that it's related to that.
Oh yeah.
It was so, wow. You know, I'm a different person than the person that was wheeled into that surgery.
Yeah.
You know, I'm different. And I'm like, oh, I love this. I love me.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling to be that way. And, you know, we beat ourselves up for things all the time, and to let all that go.
And everything is so serious. I mean, especially as a Capricorn, I had to learn to actually play. Everything was just, oh my God, it was always the end of the world. And with all the Scorpio, you can imagine.
Thank God for all that Sagittarius energy that you have. I mean, because you really can step back from everything that you just said while it's true, and see the humor in it, see the purpose of it, see the meaning of it. I mean, really, you're really blessed there, because
Thank God.
right? I mean, if you didn't have that, like God, you'd feel so weighted, like a lot of the time.
Oh, I was in my early 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Everything was so serious.
And I've always been giggly. You know, I've been that way my whole life because I was so shy. You know, growing up, my response to everything was, so, you know, I had to. It took me a long time to get serious, and then I think for a long time I was too serious, and now I feel like I'm getting humor bone back.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's go ahead and see if we have any other comments. I'll check on Facebook. Love to hear from you, everybody. Remember, if you like what we're saying, please give us thumbs up, hit the like button on Facebook. We want to hear your comments to the side below. If you're listening to our YouTube channel later, make sure that you hit the like button and follow us, subscribe to our channel so that you can go back and listen to the videos. And the nice thing about there is you can move that scrub bar. If you hear something that you want to hear again, jot down the time, quarter after the hour or 20 after that, whatever it is, and then use the scrub bar and go to that point and listen again and listen again and listen again until you really process whatever it was that was the aha for you.
And I know Carol had put something in the chat about that expression, which is so wonderful. What other people think of me is none of my business. That's actually, that is from Terry Cole Whitaker's book, and Wayne Dyer said at one point that was his favorite book title. Mm-hmm. Her book about what other people think of me is none of my business. So thanks, Carol, for that. That's perfect for this conversation.
Yes.
We have Anne saying, "Love, you're happy, Cindy."
I'm telling you, I'm just feeling so great. I'm enjoying it. Even with the detox flu and all that, I have felt nothing but joy.
Well, and you also know it's purposeful. I mean, you understand the meaning of it rather than, oh my God, I'm congested or I'm coughing, which certainly is not pleasant, but it has a higher purpose, and you know that. Mm-hmm. Which is why I think where some of the joy comes from, even though in your body it's not feeling great, but there's this higher wisdom that you know how wonderful that this is, and this is just a part of the body doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, my body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and I'm in gratitude for that. And if I start feeling really bad, I grab a cat. Animals always...
Okay, we have Bet. With the moon in Capricorn, I relate to what Shivani said about being so serious. I like to say I'm younger than that now as I have aged. Love that. That's the Capricorn thing.
That's the beauty of Capricorn, is you feel younger as you get older. Yep.
That's what I'd like. Yeah. I mean, it was perfect. I remember when I was 15, you look older, so I could get into all the clubs, no problem. And the older I get, the younger I feel.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, Valerie wrote back in and she says, I love you all so much. Thank you. Yes, I know. And, she said, but I can't make something that isn't there. So, she also says, boy, can I relate to you, Cindy. Our brother died at 41 years ago. And up until our mother died, that was always her focus. And that happens to a lot of people. And when we lose somebody, like, it would be easy to focus on, my cat Band-Aid, who was my soulmate and was there for every surgery I went through after my car wreck. I just had this bond with him. And it was really hard for me to get over. And then I had to still love him, but let that go. I have 3 other kitties that needed me. And now, I've got a new one. So, and a puppy coming. But I got Band-Aid's picture up on the wall, and I thank him every day for sending Gracie into my life, and for the importance that he was, that he brought to my life. And I, at the same time, appreciate every animal that I have. Because it happens with children or family members and our animals.
Totally.
Yeah. So other comments? Are there any other ones?
Thank you, Lola. I couldn't remember where it was from. I just love it.
Let's see here. And let me see here. Last response, Cindy, is what you were talking about 10 minutes ago. Just to share, you just described me and my mother, and then the teenage marriage and pregnancy. So, my story isn't the only one like this. I used to think I was the only one, Sat, and found out there are many of us that have gone through the same thing. And she says, I got married and I did it to leave home. I did ask in my mother, my mother in her 30s, why were there, why are we they, okay. Why are we I think is what you meant, the way we are to each other. Why are we this way is the question she asked. And her mother said that, my mother was just one who would not share about herself. Okay, so she wouldn't even bring up what was going on there. She didn't.
Well, that was part of that generation too.
Yeah. And I was lucky that my mom finally did tell me, because I, from my wedding day, I felt that way. So Valerie just said, amen. And any other comments? Let's see.
Nothing from mine.
Okay. I had a woman friend that I lived with for 27 years. We had some good times together, but she was jealous. I get that. I get that too. And that really can drive a wedge with people. I learned not to take it personally. Thank you for bringing that up, Richard, because a lot of people take that jealousy as there's something wrong with me if somebody chooses someone else over me. If they leave us, or if, they treat us badly because they don't feel like they can be as good as we are. And they might not even know that that's what's going on. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. She even kicked him out. Yeah.
Because ultimately the jealousy is underneath all that is I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. And, and I find I've got a couple of people like that in my life, and they're always trying to compare themselves to me. And I'm like, you've got your own gifts, love that. I'm not being who I am to make you mad. I'm just being who I am, and that's the same thing with Richard, which he, I know, has discovered because he's very enlightened. So beautiful. Well, I think that's most of our comments. And any final thoughts y'all want to share? Lorelei?
I would just like to offer that, again, to be really extra conscious of self now whenever there's a full moon, because it is so easy to react. And whether you make a game of it with yourself, but just knowing, whatever's going on in the cosmos is going on inside us. So that to me brings a lot of peace. And if you're open to being, again, inspired by what happens, then you can have a tremendous experience. So if you read stuff and they go eclipses and this and that, that's again, you don't need to take it personally. That's other people's fear as well. this is a beautiful time of being able to shift old conditioning and move into a greater self-acceptance, self-empowerment, and self-confidence, and being who you really are.
Lorelei, I just had a thought. See what you think of this. What about if we listed some of the things that, some of our own shadows,
Ooh.
that we would like to bring into the light, and then really meditate on them, tap or even do ho'oponopono right at the dark of that eclipse.
Yeah.
You know, when you feel that cool feeling, it's not a total eclipse, but you'll probably still feel that coolness, you know, when there's an eclipse.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
It just came to me. So
yeah,
just an idea, everybody. Okay, Shivani?
Yeah, for me also, if you do react, please forgive yourself first. and then take the time to really look at, okay, what is underneath the reaction?
Mm-hmm.
But be loving with yourself. Because it's a skill we are learning, yeah? And I still react, but then at least it's like, okay, what is it for me?
You've all heard before, who does this belong to?
Right.
And if it's not yours, or, you know, what's under this, who does it belong to? Is this somebody else's reaction and not mine? You know, if we see somebody else do it, oh, this is the way my dad used to react. You know, we can let that go. We can say, you know, or whoever in our lives. That's just an example.
And when all else fails, clean.
There you go. You know, just a quick thing about my cats right now. I have Gracie, who is fully trained. She knows her left paw from the right paw. She stands, she sits, she lays. She knows all this stuff. And I have these special treats I give her. I have another cat, Nickel, who learned that if he does them, he's been watching. So he's been doing this too, because he knows he's going to get a treat.
Oh,
so, you know, we can use this for the good, or we can use it for negative. You know, that is our choice. For him, he's learned when he puts up his paw, he's going to get a treat. So, so we can use it in either way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So everyone, I thank you for being here today. This has been a great conversation. Still want to hear your comments, please list them below, and we will talk about them next week. And I will, let me see, next week we'll be talking about the third agreement. And we see, third agreement is
don't make assumptions.
Yeah, don't make assumptions. Oh, good one. Another good one. So that'll be next week. And much love to you all. Thank you so much for joining us, and namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.